to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
All right, guys, stop the music. Stop it right in its tracks. Cut the music. Folks, welcome to Real Truth. There's no mistaking this show for any other one. You don't need the theme music to know where you are. It's Real Truth. I'm Howard Riell, and listen to the sound of my voice, please. As I was rounding up news for today's show, I ran across a headline that stopped me in my tracks. It's a piece published on townhall.com, written by David Limbaugh. The headline, "Is President Obama intentionally destroying America?" It's a good question, right? It's a very good question, and it's one that I've attempted to answer here on Real Truth. Let's listen to some of this article because it's that important that I have to shove it to the front of everything else. I quote David Limbaugh. "During my book tour, radio hosts are forever asking me whether I believe Obama is intentionally attempting to destroy America. It's a fair question, especially given the title of my book and because so many people legitimately believe he is. I have never been too receptive to conspiracy theories, and I'm not particularly enamored of one circulating about Obama. But unlike many other such theories, this one is about a truly unprecedented assault on the American idea and on those first principles that have made America a unique experiment in constitutional government that it has been. Ordinary people, not just a small fringe group of zealots, are really afraid today. They see the country they adore being attacked at all levels. They see their freedoms under assault, their life savings genuinely in jeopardy, an endlessly anemic economy, a longer period of sustained unemployment than we've experienced in half a century, and a national financial crisis born of world historic national debt that this president will not help avert. These are extremely troubled times. The government is on course to gobble up our health care system. Businesses are afraid to hire because of the uncertainties caused by new taxes and regulations that will be unleashed with Obamacare, along with the largest tax increase in the nation's history, which is already awaiting us in January. Small businesses see an administration that not only is at war with the private sector, but also appears to be on a mission to punish and obliterate our domestic energy resources and waste billions more in borrowed federal dollars on green energy products doomed to fail. Why? How can anyone explain this insanity? Does Obama truly harbor a grudge against America? What did he mean when he said he wanted to fundamentally change America? What did his wife mean when she said she'd never been proud of America in her adult life before he rose to power? What possesses Obama to deride and apologize for America? What drives him to instinctively distrust business and the private sector and to believe that federal planners ought to have enormously more discretion in how our income and wealth are distributed? What drives him to reject the American concept of equal opportunity and promote the notion of equality of outcomes? Why is he determined to energize labor unions and encourage a permanently adversarial climate between labor and management? Why is he so adamant about the United States deferring to international bodies in the conduct of its foreign affairs? Why is he hell-bent on downscaling our nuclear and conventional forces and dismantling our military space program and our missile defenses? Are people not wholly rational in wondering just what in the world is going on? My personal belief is that Obama, like so many leftist radicals, has a strong distaste for pre-Obama America, and that he believes that the United States has been an imperialistic international bully, that we've consumed too much of the world's resources, that we've been an environmental felon, and that our capitalistic system unfairly and inequitably distributes income and wealth. And I think he means to effect wholesale change to rectify those sins. Do I believe he wants to destroy America as such? No. In his mind, as warped and foreign as I think it is, he doubtlessly believes he's helping to create a better America, a utopia of sorts. That is, he's intentionally trying to fundamentally transform America into something he believes would be better, but that most Americans, and infinitely more if they understood the full scope of what he's up to, would consider horrific. An America that we would barely recognize as the one bequeathed to us by our ancestors. On the financial front alone, Obama is single-handedly preventing entitlement and discretionary spending reform, without which, as I've said dozens of times, America will face financial catastrophe. There is less than zero question that he's doing that on purpose, regardless of whether you think he's otherwise intentionally damaging America. There's no question that he's acting as though he has a vendetta against the oil, coal, natural gas, and nuclear power industries. There's also little question he's intentionally dividing Americans on the basis of race, economic class, gender, sexual orientation, and sometimes religion. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to recognize the damage Obama is doing to the republic, and we haven't even touched on his unconstitutional and lawless usurpations of authority. The question isn't whether he's intentionally destroying America. The question is whether he's intentionally pursuing a set of policies that are definitely damaging America, irrespective of his motives. The answer is irrefutably, emphatically, yes, unquote. That's the piece from David Limbaugh, my friends. And the question I throw out to you, and you know this is a call-in show. You're free to call me and tell me what you think. In fact, I would love it if you would. The call-in number is 877-254-7524. Can we read into Obama's action intent? Is he intentionally damaging America? You know, first of all, there are a lot of people who wonder if he is a secret Muslim, or if his sympathies are with Muslims, and we know Muslims worldwide in the name of global jihad would love to tear America down and swarm over it. Is that a motivation in his mind? Also, we know that liberal elitists, of which he is one, and by whom he was created, want nothing more than to humble America and erect in its place a global governance, a one-world government. Now, that may sound like science fiction to you and me, but these people believe they can utilize the United Nations and international treaties to do that, and you know what? They are on the way to doing it, and maybe they can do it. It would be a hell on earth, but there are people who want to do it, and to do that, they've got to push America out of the way. Is that his intention? Well, my friends, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I do not have the power to read minds. However, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were, my bet would be that they may indeed have utopian dreams. But step one in their plan is indeed to damage America. Because right now, we are the bull goose loony, as they said in Jack Nicholson's movie. I forget what the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There it goes. I still got some gray cells left. Number one is bringing America down. Because right now, America is it in the world. And they want to be it in the world. There's only room at the top of the mountain for one. Right now, America is there, and so they are busy pulling us down. Do I believe that? I do. And it's not just Obama. It's the entire elite, the whole 1%, the fraction of 1%, who make the real changes and the real decisions in this world. They want America humbled, crippled, and they're doing it, and they're doing a hell of a job of it. Thing is, you and I live here. So we can't just hang around with our hands at our sides and our mouths shut while people bring the edifice of our lives down on our heads. We've got to stop what they're doing. Now, we're having computer troubles today. I don't know if we've gone to break or not. Fortunately, I've got a big mouth, so I'll just keep talking, assuming that someone out there in the universe hears me and cares. I decided to push this piece by David Limbaugh to the beginning of the show today because it's just that important. Whether or not there is intention in what he's doing, I believe there is beside the point. The fact of the matter is, if he doesn't intend to destroy America, he's doing a pretty good job of it anyway. How much difference would there be with a Romney presidency? I'll be very honest with you, friends. I don't know. I don't know if it would be a whole hell of a lot of difference, but it would be different. It would be somewhat different. We see what Obama has done. We cannot permit him to do any more of it. Item from the Daily Caller. 83% of American physicians have considered leaving their practices over President Barack Obama's health care reform law, according to a survey released by the Doctor-Patient Medical Association. The DPMA, a nonpartisan association of doctors and patients, surveyed a random selection of 699 doctors nationwide. The survey found that the majority have thought about bailing out of their careers over the legislation, which was upheld last month by the Supreme Court. Even if doctors do not quit their jobs over the ruling, America will face a shortage of at least 90,000 doctors by 2020. The new health care law increases demand for physicians by expanding insurance coverage. This change will exacerbate the current shortage as more Americans live past 65. By 2025, the shortage will balloon to over 130,000, according to Len Marquez, the Director of Government Relations at the American Association of Medical Colleges, speaking to the Daily Caller. One of our primary concerns is that you've got an aging physician workforce and you have these new beneficiaries, these newly insured people coming through the system, he said. There will be strains and there will be physician shortages. The DPMA found that many doctors do not believe the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act will lead to better access to medical care for the majority of Americans. Co-founder of the DPMA, Catherine Serkis, told the D.C. Doctors clearly understand what Washington does not, that a piece of paper that says you're covered by insurance or enrolled in Medicare or Medicaid does not translate to actual medical care when doctors can't afford to see patients at the lowball payments and patients have to jump through government and insurance company bureaucratic hoops, she said, unquote. My friends, I hate to say I told you so. Scratch that. I'll be honest instead. I love to say I told you so. I love it. I and a lot of people who are much smarter than I am, we could see this coming 10 miles away. Obamacare is a disaster. The very, very tip of the Titanic is just now brushing the front of the iceberg. You want to see destruction? We're about to see it. Item from the Times of India, Dateline Kabul. The scene that Afghan officials say was caught on video last month near Kabul was as horrific as it was once common in Afghanistan. A Taliban fighter executing a woman with repeated shots in the back of her head as her compatriots and scores of villagers watch and then cheer. Stop! You heard me. Cheer! Some piece of filth from the Taliban shoots a woman in the back of the head repeatedly. And the people of this town in Afghanistan do what? Do they turn around in disgust? No. These are Muslims. They watch. And they cheer. What's that, you say? Yes. Exactly the way they cheered when they turned on their TVs and saw the World Trade Center in ashes. Same cheering. Same people. Same love of humanity. The crime of which the woman was accused? Adultery. The video, which has begun circulating in Kabul, recalls the Taliban's 5-year reign in Afghanistan when public executions were advertised on the radio and people accused of crimes were shot in front of crowds that packed the Capitol Stadium. Adultery was among the crimes punishable by death. The execution captured on the video took place in the Shinwari district of Parwan in central Afghanistan, less than a 2-hour drive from Kabul. It occurred on or around June 23rd, according to Colonel Masjidi, a senior provincial police official. In the video, Taliban members can be heard saying that the executioner is the woman's husband, though Afghan officials offered conflicting accounts of what transpired in the village. Ul-Ihir, Colonel Masjidi, said the woman's real husband was a member of a village militia that had slain a local Taliban leader. The woman was executed in revenge and trumped up charges of adultery. He said, Roshna Khalid, a spokeswoman for the provincial government, said the woman was killed for having multiple affairs with Taliban fighters. Khalid said the woman's name was Najiba and that she was in her 20s and did not have children, unquote. My friends, the fact that they're killing people for suspected adultery is secondary. What's primary is the fact that in the Muslim world, man, this is sport. This is entertainment. You know, I wish I had a soundtrack for that. That's entertainment. These people aren't disgusted by a human being's brains being blown all over the pavement. They're not horrified by executions. They love it. They love it. They fill stadiums to see it. And how glad are you that they live here with us? Item from John Whitehead at the Rutherford Institute, Dateline, Williamsburg, Virginia. The Rutherford Institute is calling upon the city of Williamsburg to tread carefully in its efforts to appease local business owners by discouraging street preachers from engaging in expressive activities on Duke of Gloucester Street within the colonial Williamsburg historic area and Merchants Square area. City officials rejected an initial proposal to establish free speech zones within the city's historic areas after the Rutherford Institute warned it was so overboard as to severely restrict expressive activities within historic areas and could even be considered as criminalizing casual interactions taking place outside those areas. The city of Williamsburg remains one of our lone links to a time when communities had town squares, public areas, where people gathered to exchange information, ideas, and do business, said John Whitehead. These served a vital function in America's history, allowing opinions and ideas, whether good or bad, to be aired and debated. While we hope the City Council will continue to set the standard for a vibrant community that not only protects the freedoms prized so highly by our founders, but celebrates them, no matter what course the Council chooses to follow, the Rutherford Institute is ready to ensure that the Constitution's assurances of free speech, assembly, religious expression, and equal protection under the law are not jeopardized, unquote. Item from townhall.com from John Hawkins. The headline, the 8 most shameful moments of Barack Obama's presidency. Number 8, saying that the private sector is doing fine. You know what hasn't been doing fine for a single day since Barack Obama came into office? The private sector. Number 7, Obama bows to the Saudi king. If Barack Obama had spent his formative years in the United States instead of overseas, he'd know that real Americans don't bow. 6, son looked like Trayvon. At a time when George Zimmerman was publicly being threatened with death and white people were being beaten, quote, for Trayvon, unquote, there was an opportunity for the president to show leadership and encourage people to calm down. Instead, after making some perfunctory remarks towards that end, Obama added fuel to the fire by noting, quote, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, unquote. Number 5, refusing to pick up illegals from Arizona. After the Obama administration refused to enforce federal immigration law in Arizona, the state passed a tough new law that allowed local police to do the job ICE would not do. Disgracefully, Barack Obama held a White House press conference where both he and Mexican President Felipe Calderon ganged up against Arizona for doing little more than enforcing the laws on its books. The Obama administration then sued Arizona, and after it didn't emerge completely victorious, simply refused to pick up illegal aliens that are not felons from Arizona. In other words, not only is Barack refusing to enforce the law of the land, he won't allow anyone else to uphold the laws that he falsely swore to uphold when he became president. Number 4, persecuting the Catholic Church. Obama spat in the face of the Catholic Church and violated its constitutionally protected First Amendment religious rights by demanding that it provide birth control and abortion-fashioned drugs in its hospitals. Unless this policy is stopped, millions of Americans will pay the price as the Catholic Church closes its hospitals rather than violate its deeply held religious beliefs in order to cater to Barack Obama's whims. Number 3, passing Obamacare. Healthcare reform was opposed by the Republican Party and the American people despite endless lies the Obama administration told about what a wonderful program it would be. The administration lied when it said everyone could keep their health insurance, that it wouldn't increase the deficit, when it said there were no death panels in the bill, when it said it wouldn't increase taxes, and when it said abortion wouldn't be funded with your tax dollars. All of these lies were for a program that took $500 billion out of Medicare to fund a new entitlement program that will cause large numbers of doctors to quit, dramatically reduce the quality of care, and force Americans to deal with the IRS just to get health care. It's one of the single worst bills in American history that delivers an incredibly expensive new entitlement program at the point in American history when we can least afford it. Number 2, Obama's lawless attempt to pass the DREAM Act by fiat. After the DREAM Act failed to make it through Congress, Barack Obama illegally decided to implement it anyway. After instructing the Department of Justice to stop following the law in regard to illegals under 30, Obama decided to issue work permits for illegals. That's an illegal act that directly contradicts the existing immigration law. It also makes little sense to give somewhere between 800,000 and 3 million foreign workers permits when every job they take will keep another American out of work in tough economic times. Stop for 1 second. Question: if Obama is breaking the law, why is he not in handcuffs? I didn't say it loud enough. I'll say it again. If Obama is breaking the law, and he clearly is, why is his ass not in jail? My friends, if you broke the law, or if I broke the law, we'd be in a cell. Probably would have been tasered once or twice on the way. Why is Obama free? I'm sorry, I'm whispering again. Why is Obama walking the streets free when he has clearly committed illegal acts? I don't hear an answer. I'll assume there is none. Item number 1, Eric Holder held in contempt of Congress after Obama uses executive privilege. On Barack Obama's watch, the Department of Justice helped put guns into the hands of Mexican cartels, and these guns were used to kill hundreds of Mexicans, along with American Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. Did Eric Holder know about this beforehand? Did Barack Obama? We don't know for sure because they've been engaged in a Nixonian cover-up. They've dragged their feet, stonewalled, and when they couldn't hold off any longer, Obama declared executive privilege in an attempt to hide the truth about how deeply his administration is tied to the deaths of 300-plus people. Obama's behavior was so sleazy that 17 House Democrats felt compelled to vote with Republicans to find Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. Say what you want about Watergate, but at least no one was killed during the scandal, which is something that can't be said about the Obama's Fast and Furious debacle, unquote. My friends, if you voted for Obama, shame on you. And if you vote for Obama again, well, I can't say it on the air. Item from Arutz Sheva News, that's Israel National News, written by Gil Ronan, I quote, the demonstration in Tel Aviv demanding equal service by Haredim, that's ultra-Orthodox Jews, will be followed by a march through Nazareth demanding that Arab citizens, too, pull their weight. Police have granted permission to Knesset member Ben Ari of the National Union Party and nationalist super activist Itamar Ben-Gvir and Baruch Marzel to hold a march in Nazareth and call for equality in bearing the burden in national service by Arabs. The march will take place Sunday with about 80 people participating. Police prevented a similar march through Nazareth several months ago out of concern that it would cause rioting by Nazareth's Arabs. Ben-Gvir, who recently became a lawyer, threatened to file a motion to the High Court and demand that the march be allowed in view of precedents for similar marches. Knesset member Ben Ari said there must not be discrimination between Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, and Arabs. And the Arabs, too, must perform national service and share the burden. The Arab sector needs to understand that a citizen of a country has obligations, too, and not just rights, unquote. My friends, the Israeli government, the schizophrenic political mafia that runs the Israeli government, ask and demand nothing of the Arab citizens, but give them everything. As for the Jews, they grudgingly give them some and demand everything. Do we want Arabs serving in the Israeli army? Of course not. The Arabs who live in Israel want Israel destroyed and replaced with something called Palestine, basically a furnished outhouse. The names that I mentioned before, in addition to Ben Ari and Ben Gvir, Itamar Ben Gvir, the other two names, Gvir himself, Itamar Ben Gvir, and Baruch Marzel. These two men, you may not know their names, you probably don't. These two men are heroes. These two men are heroes. If you're listening to this show, you are almost certainly pro-Israel. You want a strong, defended, well-defended Israel in Jewish hands, with Jerusalem as the Jewish people's capital city. Itamar Ben Gvir and Baruch Marzel have been working tirelessly for years and years to make that happen. One day there will be statues in their honor. Right now all I can do is mention their names and say may God be with them. May He strengthen their hands. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back with more Real Truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Herb.
The people who are controlling the government of America are the same people who are trying to control your family's health care. You can sit quietly by and accept their plan, or you can take responsibility for your health. What would happen if you could no longer obtain the medications you're now taking? Would you be forced to join the ranks of corrupt agents just to purchase the medicine? If you're one of the thousands of concerned citizens who would like to know more about a natural way, God's way to health, drop by the Green Herb for a natural solution and all the information you need to make an intelligent decision. Or go to our website, www.thegreenherb.com. Come by the Green Herb, located in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, on the I-70 Frontage Road North, 1 mile west of Kipling, or call 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Green Herb Show with Linda and Dr. Cass every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KHNC.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Welcome back to Real Truth. I'm going to turn the microphone over for a couple of minutes to my colleague Mark Levin. He's got the Mark Levin radio show. This clip comes via the Daily Caller. This is Levin talking about what an Obama re-election would mean. He calls it national suicide. Listen and then see what you call it.
We're never going to get out of this situation with a president like this. Never. Just listen to him. See what he proposes. And then, of course, he blames Congress. He really means the Republicans in Congress when he doesn't get his way. I thank God they're there to stop him. What annoys me is he's there stopping them. See, we have two visions of this country. Those of us who love it, who love the Founding Fathers, who love our founding documents, who love our capitalist system, and those who claim they do but hate it. Let's call it like it is. I'm a patriot, too. How so? You know what patriotism means? What are you rooting for? What kind of country is it that you want? And you know what's so frustrating? You can even see in these states these little experiments going on in California, which is depopulating itself. In Maryland, which is depopulating itself. In Illinois, which is depopulating itself. In New York, which is depopulating itself. You can see the pockets of tyranny within our own country. And we still don't learn from it. Let me put it bluntly. Tyranny is not compassionate. Tyranny doesn't create responsible, independent, self-sufficient citizens. It creates subjects. Tyranny attacks the differences between individuals, tries to force uniformity and conformity. Tyranny has many heads, massive regulations. You heard me read earlier, Obamacare just got started. Heavy taxes. But also, it creates a mindset where we're supposed to hate one another. And those who do the hating and attacking are said to be promoting fairness and justice and, of course, equality. We made a huge mistake 3.5 years ago electing this man president as a society. A huge, huge mistake. We do it again, it's not a mistake. It's national suicide. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
He's correct, by the way. Levin is correct. What's the expression? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Item from Gizmodo.com. Within the next year or two, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security will instantly know everything about your body, clothes, and luggage with a new laser-based molecular scanner fired from 164 feet away. From traces of drugs or gunpowder on your clothes to what you had for breakfast to the adrenaline level in your body, agents will be able to get any information they want without even touching you and without you knowing it. The technology is so incredibly effective that in November 2011, its inventors were subcontracted by In-Q-Tel to work with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. In-Q-Tel is a company founded in February 1999 by a group of private citizens at the request of the director of the CIA and with the support of the U.S. Congress. According to In-Q-Tel, they are the bridge between the agency and new technology companies. Their plan is to install this molecular-level scanning in airports and border crossings all across the United States. The official stated goal of this arrangement is to be able to quickly identify explosives, dangerous chemicals, or bioweapons at a distance. The machine is 10 million times faster and 1 million times more sensitive than any currently available system. That means it can be used systematically on everyone passing through airport security, not just suspect or randomly sampled people. Item from WesternJournalism.com.
On Friday evening, Barack Hussein Obama signed into existence National Defense Resources Preparedness, an executive order which will afford the president dictatorial powers over the nation and the American people whenever he chooses to implement it. Some of the more important and frightening dictates of the Obama decree: the president can place the order in effect virtually whenever and for whatever reason he wishes. Although related to the Defense Production Act of 1950, written as a result of the Korean War, the current executive order makes it clear the nation need not be at war or threatened with aggression by outside forces to be implemented. The order specifically states it may be activated in peacetime. All actions of the order are ultimately controlled by the president. Obama has appointed the National Security Council and DHS Secretary Napolitano as the integrated policy-making forum for all order policies. All commerce will be conducted according to the demands of the president. All services, materials, and facilities may be commandeered by the president, quote, as deemed necessary or appropriate to promote the national defense, unquote. Regulations will be issued by the president, representatives establishing nationwide standards and procedures of production. The entire economy will literally work under the president's direction. He and his representatives will also decide how all important resources are to be apportioned. They will, quote, control the general distribution of any material, including applicable services, to the civilian market, unquote. The president's representatives will have authority to grant or guarantee loans for the production of goods and materials, or to, quote, create, maintain, protect, expand, or restore domestic industrial base capabilities essential for the national defense, unquote. My friends, I can continue to go on and on and on. You can read this yourselves online. westernjournalism.com. What's the expression from that movie? Be afraid. Be very afraid. Item from the Daily Mail. A woman got the shock of her life when she woke up to find a stranger in her bedroom, yelling at her to wake up because her grass was too long. Erica Masters was asleep when Columbia County Code Compliance Officer Jimmy Vowell entered her Martinez, Georgia home without permission to serve a violation notice for her overgrown lawn. After knocking on the woman's door a few times, Vowell let himself in and made his way into her bedroom, which was captured on surveillance video. My friends, you can find this video online. He let himself in and actually came through the house and into my bedroom and yelled at me to wake me up, to let me know that I needed to come back outside and sign the violation notice, Masters told WJBF.com. I woke up, I didn't have my glasses on or my contacts in, and all I see is this big burly figure standing in my doorway, a big, huge guy with a gray shirt. It scared the mess out of me. Masters has now pressed charges against Vowell and the county. I'm really just not comfortable with where I am right now, so I've decided to press charges, at least to put my mind at ease, and to hopefully help keep the Columbia County citizens a little bit safer as well, she said. But Vowell, who's been placed on administrative leave, will not face criminal charges, it has been revealed, unquote. My friends, this is a sad story. It's sad that this woman's not a gun owner. Item from the New American. Through his Media Matters organization, George Soros is dumping pro-UN gun control propaganda into the mainstream media. We'll be back with more here on Real Truth.
The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
If you're spending hard-earned money on supplements, you need to know about BioSuperfood because you're probably shortchanging yourself on nutrition and value. If you're buying products claiming to provide DNA protection from radiation, you're getting ripped off by inferior copycat products because there's no other product developed or researched like BioSuperfood. BioSuperfood is one complete superfood product that addresses radiation poisoning, allergies, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other degenerative diseases. BioSuperfood helps digestion, decreases pain and inflammation, increases flexibility, improves heart health and brain function. It boosts your immune system and even inhibits the AIDS virus in cancerous cells. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory. BioSuperfood is not another supplement. It's a whole food and contains over 5,000 nutrients. Call now and ask about your special discounts on your BioSuperfood purchase at 303-257-7576. That's 303-257-7576 or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
My friends, what's behind the surge in surveillance requests to cell phone carriers? Well, it's a good question. It's a question that Judge Andrew Napolitano fielded recently when he was being interviewed by Jenna Lee on a show called Happening Now. You know, I love to play you clips from Judge Napolitano because he's a true champion of justice and freedom. Let's hear what he has to say now.
About Big Brother. Apparently, Big Brother is not only watching, but he may be listening too, as the feds try to get their hands on more and more cell phone records, sometimes without warrants. Now, these surveillance requests are surging to a whopping 1.3 million last year alone. Now, we should mention these records are new, so there's not a lot of comparisons to be made. But that said, here's some context. AT&T alone says it's seen law enforcement requests more than double since 2007. Judge Andrew Napolitano is here. He's a Fox News senior judicial analyst. I'll get to your text messages and emails in a moment, Judge. But apparently, there's a lack of legal clarity over this about what our cell phone provider, service providers can provide to law enforcement. What does that mean, a lack of legal clarity?
Before 9/11, before the Patriot Act, before the legislation that the federal government enacted after the Patriot Act that made it easier for the FBI to get their hands on our records without search warrants, the legal standard was the same everywhere in the country for local, state, and federal law enforcement. You wanted to listen to somebody's phone calls or you wanted a record of their phone calls from the phone company. You went to a judge and you presented evidence that demonstrated to the judge that that person probably committed a crime and that evidence for the crime was probably contained in the records you wanted.
How long did that normally take, that process?
Well, that process can take a couple of minutes. I can tell you personally, from having been there, that I issued search warrants from my living room at 3 in the morning. One of my colleagues issued a search warrant from the back of a motorcycle at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Judges sit 24/7 to hear these emergency applications. There's a record of what the police are looking for, so there can't be a fishing expedition, and the police are required to produce some evidence before judges sign the search warrants. Much of that, regrettably, changed after 9/11. Because the Patriot Act let FBI agents and other federal agents write their own search warrants, bypassing federal judges, and a lot of local and state law enforcement sort of got jealous of that federal authority, and so they began peppering judges to lower the standards a little bit to make it easier for them to listen to people's phone calls.
So let me stop you there. A 911 call center believes, if they believe there's an immediate threat to somebody's life, right now it can bypass a prosecutor or a judge when it comes to law enforcement. That's one of the things that I've read, and that's why the timing issue, I ask you about that, because there's a certain immediacy with the GPS on our phones and our communication. Before you respond to that, let me just mention law enforcement. The chief of police in Roanoke, Virginia says this: if a victim goes missing and they had a cell phone with GPS technology, would you as a loved one want us to have to wait for a subpoena, have to wait for the court, even though we know that your relative could be in dire straits? What do you say to that?
No one wants their relatives to come within a whisker of death while the niceties of the law are being complied with. That's why judges sit 24/7. I don't know this police chief, and I'm unfamiliar with the system in Roanoke, Virginia. But even in a system as busy as New York, you can get, which is the most complex and highly populated system in the country, you can get a search warrant within minutes if you know what you're doing. I would also say that we're not going to lessen the protections of the Constitution in order to make the police work a little bit easier. The police work harder, they'll save lives, they'll comply with the Constitution they have sworn to uphold.
What's the risk if we bypass that step and continue to do so?
A very slippery slope. The risk will be, what laws will we let the police break next? Now, I know you're dying to see what my last email was. Dear Jenna.
I want to see it for myself.
Okay.
John, this is what it says. XOXO. If I had a nickel for how many of these emails I got from Judge Napoz. It really...
Do you blame me?
All right, now we're not going to go into frivolity, but let's take that question, that rhetorical question that police chief posed. If your relative was missing, being held captive, would you want the system as it has been, getting a judge to sign off on it, would you want to wait for that, or would you just want the police to rush in and save your relative? Well, it's a ridiculous question. If it's your relative, if it's your son or daughter, you will move heaven and earth to save them. Countries have to think on a larger scale than individuals do. If it's just me and, God forbid, my child, I will do anything to safeguard my child. Countries cannot operate that way. We've got to have rule of law. We've got to have procedures. And, yes, we've got to have judges called in to make sure that people aren't being hassled simply because of how they voted or what they said in public. We need those protections. So stop making these false comparisons and drawing false analogies. It's a complex issue. Let's get back to another complex issue from the New American. I started this one before. Through his Media Matters organization, George Soros is dumping pro-UN gun control propaganda into the mainstream media to coincide with the United Nations Conference on the Arms Trade Treaty being held in New York, July 2 to 27. In a blog post published on July 3rd, Timothy Johnson of Media Matters describes the notion that the United Nations would ever try to take away the right of Americans to keep and bear arms as, quote, laughable. Johnson goes on to promote the passage of the UN's Arms Trade Treaty as a means of, quote, curtailing the illicit arms trade, unquote, and thus cracking down on those who use these weapons to deny others their, quote, human rights. The blog post assures citizens concerned about the potential eradication of the rights guaranteed in the Second Amendment that they have nothing to fear from the UN's gun control treaty. Stop! My friends, are you stupid? Well, I certainly hope you answered no. And if you're a member of my audience, I'm pretty damn certain you answered no. You guys are a savvy bunch of people. You're sharp. You're smart cookies. We know the UN is a fiasco. We know the UN carries the hopes and dreams of all those morons who want to construct some kind of global government, like the Empire in Star Wars. They want to cobble it together the way they cobbled together the Death Star. We know it won't work. We know it'll be horrible. So what kind of games are we playing here? The UN comes and says, trust us. We're only here for you. We're here to help you. You got nothing to worry about. My friends, as long as that big glass building is sitting on Manhattan, we've got plenty to worry about. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up here on Real Truth. Don't you go anywhere, because what's coming up next is worth your time.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1 through 3. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescents to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
Item from townhall.com, and by the way, if you haven't been to townhall.com, I highly recommend it. The headline, want to know how Washington really works? Can you say crony capitalism? I quote, Roll Call has just reported on yet another scandal that shows the character of some of our representatives on Capitol Hill, and the picture isn't pretty. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Darrell Issa indicates that former mortgage company Countrywide Financial Corp. offered discounts on home loans to hundreds of Washington officials, including several congressmen and a myriad of government workers. Countrywide's VIP unit was happy to provide these perks to those who were in the position to return the favor. This VIP unit processed loans for Congressman Pete Sessions, Adolphus Towns, Elton Gallegly, and Howard Buck McKeon. Sessions has since been shown to have rejected the discount, so there's at least one honest politician in Washington. But the rest of the cohorts haven't shown themselves to be possessed of similar virtue, and the net spread far wider than just our elected officials. Hundreds of perks went to federal officials or employees of federally backed entities like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The vast majority of Countrywide's favors landed on the doorstep of employees at Fannie Mae. In an I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine arrangement, Fannie Mae was working to protect Countrywide's irresponsibly risky subprime bets that ultimately led to Countrywide's collapse and Fannie Mae's bailout by, you guessed it, Congress. The story is all too familiar. It is emblematic of the way Washington works. The last 10 years alone have provided us with a smorgasbord of bribery, fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering, including the Jack Abramoff scandal, which eventually landed Abramoff and Congressman Bob Nye in prison, and further sullied the reputation of the already sullied Tom DeLay. Other names on the fraud's greatest hits list include Rick Renzi, Charles Rangel, Ted Stevens, Randy Cunningham, William Jefferson, and Jim Traficant. The list goes on and on. Item from USA Stands with Israel. I quote, Israel is one of the world's largest targets of terror, but the U.S. did not even mention the country at a global anti-terror conference. Israel is one of the most prominent targets for terror, and number of Israeli victims of terror is one of the highest in the world. But the United States didn't even mention the country at the Global Anti-Terror Conference. Maria Otero, U.S. Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights, noted terror victims in several countries in a speech in Madrid on Monday, but she omitted Israel. Speaking at the opening session of the Global Counterterrorism Forum high-level conference on victims of terrorism, she said, quote, around the world, terrorists make their mark on the world through acts of hate. They proclaim their values with a deep and disturbing indifference to human life, unquote. Otero noted that terror victims can serve as spokesmen for targeted countries, adding, quote, the United States and so many countries around the world have experienced the pain of terror, unquote. She did not mention Israel, unquote. My friends, why should you care? Here's why. Because God blesses those who bless the Jewish people. God curses those who curse the Jewish people, and you are now cursing the Jewish people through your elected officials. You are now spitting in God's face, telling him his chosen people don't count. That when people kill him, it's not terrorism, it's good. It's freedom fighting. It's justice. Do you think God is fooled for a minute? He's not. When Americans' government spits on Israel and the Jewish people, it is representing you and me. I won't have it. And so that's why I do everything in my power to make sure the United States stays on the side of blessings and not on curses. That's why I do this show. I'll be back in 23 hours with more Real Truth. My friends, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay angry.